In today's episode of Locked On Game Night, is it worry time in Los Angeles after a really brutal loss to the Milwaukee Bucks? We'll talk about that and the rest of the games in today's episode of Locked On NBA Game Night.
When that final buzzer rings, you know it's time for Locked On NBA Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. It's the true NBA fans' one stop for all the action. Every game, every night. It's Locked On NBA Game Night. Tipping off now.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On NBA Game Night. I am Khahil, host of the Locked On Pistons podcast. I am joined by John Karalis, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers, you get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet hits. So we're going to talk about all the games as we usually do tonight. Later on is Golden State really cementing themselves as potential contenders this year. After starting off rough, they've played really well since Jimmy Butler has joined. Also, my favorite segment that I like to do, Are You Drinking the Kool-Aid? We'll do that a little bit later. But John, did you enjoy the games tonight?
It's a lot of fun, man. It's a lot of fun. Not the closest games, but you know, there's always something fun. There's always something crazy happening. There's always somebody jumping and picking quarters off the top of the backboard. So it's something to enjoy every night.
So let's start off with the Los Angeles Lakers loss to the Milwaukee Bucks. They lose 126-106. I was watching this game, and in the first quarter, Luka Doncic was going crazy. He had an incredible first quarter in this game, and he actually ended off with 45 points in this game. We want to hear from Locked On Lakers host real quick before we get further into this game from Andy.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of the Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers fall 126-106 to the Bucks on the first end of a very difficult back-to-back roadie. Thursdays in Denver, and this would be a tough game under any circumstance for the Lakers, but even more so without LeBron James, Rui Hachimura, Jackson Hayes, especially since not nearly enough Lakers stepped up to fill the void. 73 combined points from Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, 29 from Luka in the first half, which almost outscored all the other remaining Lakers combined for the game. Save 10 points from Dalton Connect. No other Laker even reached 7 points. Clearly, they're going to need more production if they're going to survive during this very shorthanded period. For more Lakers coverage, make sure you're watching Locked On Lakers on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts.
So we'll get into the Bucks a little later, but John, obviously the Lakers, as Andy mentioned, they're dealing without LeBron, without Rui, without Jackson Hayes. They go against this Milwaukee Bucks team and get absolutely blown out. Do you think it's worry time in LA?
Yeah, a little bit. It's, they're right now a game out of second, but they're also 3.5 games out of the play-in tournament. So this is a very tough schedule. The postponements due to the fires are now coming back, and this is going to be a very difficult stretch, like Andy alluded to. You got a back-to-back at Denver. One day off, you play Phoenix. Another, and then that's part of a back-to-back. It's San Antonio, and they just shut down De'Aaron Fox, so maybe you catch a little bit of a break, but one day off, a back-to-back Denver, Milwaukee again. One day off, Chicago. One day off, Orlando. This is a really excruciating stretch where the Lakers, who were on that upswing with LeBron and Luka and still trying to figure it out and still not having Luka playing his absolute best, now you're getting Luka being Mavs Luka a little bit, and you lose LeBron and you hit this stretch of the schedule. It's really, really tough. And you know how it is, man. The playoffs are about matchups, and if you fall down to that 6, 7, 8, you start to get into a maybe it's a first round against Denver as opposed to a first round against the Kings or the Clippers or the Timberwolves, the teams that are more manageable, teams that you can handle. All of a sudden you're going up against potentially Jokic in the first round. You had a run. Look, the Celtics just played the Lakers. People were talking about it as a potential finals matchup. And now because of the schedule and the LeBron injury, am I crazy, Koo? A first round exit is almost as likely.
Yeah, I think it's definitely likely, and I think it's definitely worry time in Los Angeles. So, like you mentioned it there a few weeks ago, actually not even a few weeks ago, just last week, everyone was celebrating. Oh, the Lakers are in second seed; they're the second best team in the conference. They're going to the finals, and just literally a few days go by, and now they've been leaped by the Memphis Grizzlies, who people aren't really talking about as much. The Denver Nuggets, who have leaped them, and they're tied really with the Houston Rockets in the standings. Golden State's getting hot; they're just 3.5 games behind them. Minnesota comes off a good win; they're 3.5 games behind them. I know that they upgraded LeBron to day, but the longer LeBron is out, the more of a concern this becomes for the Los Angeles Lakers. And even if LeBron comes back, now that it's been elevated to a day injury, I have a little bit of a concern that is that going to be something he deals with the rest of the year? Groin, hamstring injuries aren't something that you really want to play with and can nag you throughout the year. So if LeBron's not 100%, will they even be able to, have him at that 100% where they can get back to that second seed? It's a lot different, like you mentioned, going against potentially, even staying at the 4 and going against a Houston at the 5. It's a lot different than that than going against Denver in the first round, who has had their number the last few years. I think it definitely is worry time.
And because of LeBron's age and because of the soft tissue injury, it takes a little bit longer. And we know LeBron has had a tendency to break down towards the ends of these seasons. And so it's always been a concern, can LeBron make it through a whole finals run? Bringing him back too soon could be more problematic. And this is like the catch-22. You need LeBron to avoid dropping into the lower portion of the playoffs, but your best chance to get out of that lower portion of the playoffs is a healthy LeBron. So, like, if I'm the Lakers, it would be just as devastating to get him back early, get to that, middle or top 4, and have him get hurt again, because without LeBron, if you face Houston in the first round of the playoffs, we just saw what Luka plus the rest of these Lakers, even if they get Rui back, it's just not the same. This becomes a real, the strength of the Lakers obviously is having the two dynamic ball handlers in LeBron and Luka. So they were just really in a tough spot. You have to, above all else, make sure LeBron is healthy, because if you bring him back too early and he gets hurt again, you're just screwed. So as crazy it is to say, dropping into the play-in, if it takes an extra week to get LeBron healthy, then if that's where you end up, that's where you end up. And you just got to believe that no matter what seed you fall into, healthy LeBron, healthy Luka is better than 70% LeBron and the potential for re-injury.
All right, so let's go over to the Milwaukee side real quick. Milwaukee was coming off a really, really tough loss to the Indiana Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton hit a crazy shot and a questionable foul call that went Indiana's way. Milwaukee loses that game. Coming into this game, they were in a 3-way tie for that 4th seed with the Pacers and the Pistons. Now, we'll talk about the Pistons later, who dropped to the Wizards. Now, the Bucks win. They break that tie. I just want to ask you, John, are you buying any stock into Milwaukee as a sneaky contender in the East?
I have to, because of Giannis. I have to, because he and Dame have the potential to have, to combine and carry a team. And when you get these, combined 40 points from Kevin Porter Jr. and Gary Trent, that type of bench performance is going to carry you a long way. If you can get supporting performances, that's great. Now, facing, again, matchups, if they face Boston, a team that can take Brook Lopez out of things, and look, Brook comes in and scores 23 in this game, that's a huge part of why they won. So yes, I buy Milwaukee, but they are still susceptible to the matchups. If they match up with Boston in a second round, that could be the end of it. But look, man, Giannis is Giannis. Dame still has the potential to go off. So they are in a tier below Boston and Cleveland, but they're right there with New York, I think, in the East.
Yeah, I think you have to give them a shot just because they have Giannis. I think on any series, until they get to the finals, they probably have the best player on the floor. And when you have the best player on the floor, you have to give them a shot, especially when we've seen how Giannis healthy looks in the playoffs the last few years since that embarrassment he had in the bubble to Miami. He's been going crazy in the playoffs since then when he's healthy. And like you mentioned, if you're going to get 22 points from Kevin Porter Jr. and 16 points from Gary Trent Jr., if you can get – now, that's not going to happen all the time, but if you can just get some of these guys to give you some kind of production along with the Giannis and a Dame, I mean, again, they're not going to be favored in any of these series against the Celtics or against the Cavs, as they shouldn't be. But I think you always have to leave that door just a little bit open just because they have Giannis and Dame on their team. So coming up, though, I want to talk about the Golden State Warriors, who it felt like before the deadline this team might have been dead and not going anywhere in the playoffs. And now, are they a sneaky contender in the West? It seems like we have a lot of sneaky contenders going on around the NBA. We'll talk about them coming up. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories, and even who's cutting down the nets. I've got my eye on a few underdogs this year, and FanDuel makes it easy to back them with spreads, totals, and game props. With tournament games happening almost every day, there's always something exciting to bet on. The FanDuel is also simple to use, and when I win, I get paid instantly. There's no waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get on the college hoops action all tournament long. And again, you get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So visit FanDuel and again, get in on the college hoop action all tournament long with FanDuel. Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Game Night. We are going to be talking about the Golden State Warriors. And are they sneaky contenders now in the Western Conference? Again, host of the Locked On Pistons podcast, Khahil, and also host of the Locked On Celtics podcast, John Karalis. The Golden State Warriors, I mean, they really handled the Sacramento Kings in this game. They win by a score of 130-104. And in this game, obviously, Curry reaches the milestone. He gets 4K three-pointers made, but he didn't really do much in this game. They mentioned that he was dealing with a little back injury before the shoot around. He didn't really do much. Draymond Green turned the clock back to Game 7 in 2016, hit 4 threes in this game, had 23 points. It seems like ever since Jimmy Butler has arrived, even when Jimmy's not putting up crazy stats, he only had 6 points in this game. It just feels like that since Jimmy has arrived, this team has completely woken up. John, are you buying this team as a potential contender in the West now?
Not contender, but a problem. You know, like I don't think this puts them past, you know, OKC, Denver in that group, but it takes them out of the play-in, kind of like I used to look at the Warriors as like, oh, look at them. It's so nice that they're still trying. But now Jimmy adds just a threat that has to be defended. He adds a smart player. We saw him obviously he had 7 assists, but the Warriors are a great cutting team. And when you have a guy who understands great cutting like Jimmy Butler does, he can read the game very well. He can make plays that other guys weren't making, and he's finding players. So he's elevating his teammates because he's able to find the if you're going to move, if you're going to get yourself open, Jimmy will get you the ball. And that makes the Warriors offense very dangerous because now you have guys like, you know, you saw Draymond Green getting baskets off cuts from Jimmy. You see a guy like Kuminga who can play with Jimmy and cut and get the ball. And it opens things up for Steph, because if the more you have to worry about these other guys and Jimmy finding them, then you turn your attention for a half second, and that's when Steph breaks free and he can get going. So yeah, it makes them dangerous. And obviously Butler's a pretty good defender still, not what he used to be, but it's still in a 7-game series. I'm still not taking them over the top of the West, but it does make them a much tougher out.
Yeah, I mean, what really has me buying into them as a potential sneaky contender is their defense. Their defense has been a top 5 defense since February 8th. I mean, I just watched them for a full game go against the Pistons and what was like a defensive masterclass from both teams. That was a crazy game. But this defense that they have now with Jimmy, you potentially have like the 2 smartest players in the NBA, 2 of the top smartest players in the NBA defensively in Jimmy Butler and Draymond, and they can just clamp down on teams. They execute switches well. They are on the same page defensively. You rarely see them on a miscommunication or not knowing where to be, on not knowing what rotation to go to. They're a really smart defensive team now. And you mentioned it, offensively, it just gives them another guy that can play make, that can make the right decisions, that can get guys open. And you have players like Santos, who is getting wide open dunks, getting wide open layups because of the attention that Steph Curry brings, because of the attention that he gets coming off of down screens. When he sets a screen himself, guys just being afraid of him then rotating up and him bringing two with him. You got guys like Santos getting open, getting easy dunks. You got Kuminga crashing down from the baseline because Steph gets two on the ball. And now you got Jimmy or Draymond attacking in the short roll, and you got Kuminga going down the baseline, a 2-on-1 situation. Kuminga got some of the easiest baskets I've seen a guy get tonight simply because he's feeding off of Steph's gravity. So I think it's going to be hard to beat a team like OKC. Like, I think OKC is obviously the overwhelming favorite. And even a team like Denver, I think Jokic is still going to cause problems for just about anybody in the West. But with how they played since the deadline, like, I really think they have a chance against the Rockets, against the Lakers, against the Grizzlies, against any team outside of OKC, really. And I'd give it to Denver just because of the respect I have for Jokic. I feel like they have a chance versus any one of these teams. And Steph, since the All-Star break, I know he was struggling a little bit in this game because it sounded like he was hurt a little bit, but him since the All-Star weekend, he's been looking more and more like Steph. And that's another guy, kind of like how we mentioned in the first segment. Steph's a guy that maybe not entering in a series, you say, oh, he's better than SGA at this point. But he's a guy that could definitely be the best player in a series and just take over a series if he gets hot and is playing well. So all that combined, I think they have a chance. I think they have a chance in the West.
Here's my concern. Let's work backwards in their wins. They just beat Sacramento, Portland, Detroit, Brooklyn, New York, Charlotte. This is their current winning streak. Detroit is good, but not great. Right? Okay. New York is probably the best team that they've beaten, and New York has a great offense. They did a great job limiting them to 102 points. They have a loss to Philly. They beat Orlando, Charlotte, Dallas, Sacramento, Houston. Again, Houston's the good team in there. They haven't beaten a ton of high-end teams. They are doing what they're supposed to do. They've beaten some decent teams, some good teams, but they've beaten a lot of middle to bad teams. And great, they're on a run. This is what they're supposed to do. Earlier in the season, they were losing to these teams, and this is why they're better. I'm not ready to say a 7-game series against the top of the West. Memphis. Not, even like Denver, the Lakers, I don't know, maybe, but I still don't think they're favored. If you look at the top 5, OKC, Memphis, Denver, LA, and Houston, all the teams above them, is Golden State favored in any of those series?
Probably not.
So can they win? Sure, they can, because of all the things that you said, because their defense is playing, better, but the adjustments, I don't know that they have the same adjustments that other teams can make. I think they're playing great. I think they're playing great in this regular season. What do you do when a team takes away Jimmy Butler? What do you do when Jimmy Butler has to play 40 minutes? That's the stuff that really gets me. Like, can you get these guys in a playoff situation and get them to win 4 out of 7 games against one of the top teams in the conference? I think they would look a little bit different, and I think they would start to wear down. So again, a tough out. Maybe they'll win an opening round series depending on the matchup. I don't see them getting out of the second round still.
So let me ask you this, and I want to talk about their schedule coming up real quick. I want to ask you this. So do you trust them more currently, as of right now, with everything that's going on? Do you trust them more than the Lakers right now heading into the playoffs? Or do you trust the Lakers more?
So difficult. I mean, I trust the Warriors more because they are healthier. But if LeBron is healthy, it's the Lakers. So it depends on LeBron's health. Either team has the potential to break down because everybody's old in that series. But right now, just because LeBron, I don't trust LeBron with a soft tissue injury, especially a groin that's so difficult to deal with. I would trust the Warriors right now. Yes.
All right. So that would be the same answer as me. And also, I'll go ahead and openly say it. I've been a little bit of a hater on the Lakers stretch because I refuse to believe that Jackson Hayes is going to continue to be a usable big, especially come to playoff time. Like what JJ is getting out of the defense with him in the lineup, it's been great. But I refuse to believe this is something that's going to continue to happen when the playoffs roll around.
Again, a product of your teammates, man. Like he's so like on his own. You're right, 100%. But like with LeBron and Luka around him and all that space, all you got to do is just stay within that lane in that little box that they need you. Just do what you do. That all-star in your role thing, that's great. But once you have to get outside of that box, then you got problems. So I think right now they're gonna ask him to be stepping out of that box, and then we're gonna see like, oh yeah, that's right.
Speaking of the Warriors schedule, this is the next few weeks. They do got some matchups that you should be looking forward to. Then on the 17th, they do play the Nuggets. Could be a big time game to see. Tomorrow they play the Knicks, which would be a fun game. I know the Knicks also have this reputation of can't really beat good teams, but that is still a good quality win if they were to get it. They got the Grizzlies on April 1st. They got the Lakers on April 3rd. Then they have the Nuggets again, the Warriors or the Rockets again. So they got a few games coming up here over the end of the season where they have a chance to really show themselves, cement themselves, especially because they'll be fighting for playoff position. It's not like teams are going to be resting each other. All those teams are going to be fighting for everything's so close in both conferences right now. So it's going to be interesting to see. But coming up, I want to talk with John and ask him the question. If you guys watched last week's episode with Swipe, you guys know this is coming. Are you drinking the Kool-Aid? We'll talk about it, and you guys will find out what that game's like when we come back. Ever check your bank account and wonder where did all the money go? Between dining out and online shopping and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place so you can stop managing your money and start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Trust me, that DoorDash was emptying my wallet. Now I budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can now use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year with Monarch. So I want to thank you guys again for checking in with Locked On Game Night. Again, I am your host of the Locked On Pistons podcast, Khahil. That is John Karalis, host of the Locked On Celtics podcast. And now we're going to play a game real quick, John. You've never played this game before.
I love new games.
You've never played this game before. The good thing about this game, you can't lose. There's no losing.
Okay.
It's only
I will find a way to lose.
All right, so we'll start off with the Pistons Wizards game. Before I ask the question, we do want to hear from our Locked On Wizards host over their win.
The Washington Wizards defeat the Detroit Pistons 129-125 for their 14th win of the season. And this was a good culture win for the Washington Wizards. But how did they get this win tonight? Well, easy. Team basketball. 7 Washington Wizards scored in double figures tonight, and the right players made the right decisions at the right time in the fourth quarter. Key plays by Justin Shinpenny, but also key plays by Chris Middleton and Marcus Smart. They kept the Wizards in the game, and they pulled it off. Really good victory against a really good team in Detroit. So they'll look to get their 15th victory, which would actually be the win total from last year on Saturday versus the Denver Nuggets. So let's see if they can get their 15th win of the season. Hail to the Wizards and peace.
All right, so John, that was a terrible loss for my Pistons. You know, it's a rough night right now. But
Can I get a minute on you? Can I get a short? Let's set this up and let's get the Pistons perspective from Locked On Pistons host Khahil.
It was a rough night. This was 313 Day, which if people who aren't in Detroit know, 313 is the area code for Detroit. So 313 Day every year is like this big event in Detroit in Little Caesars Arena. They do a big thing for the Pistons game. So this was known as 313 Day. All the sports teams celebrate it, whatever. big time. The crowd was so like it was a heavy crowd. Crowd was crazy, and the Pistons showed up and just didn't feel like playing defense. Apparently, they just allowed 129 points to one of the worst teams in the entire NBA, arguably the worst, and just decided to take the break off. They thought they could flip the switch like they were this, great Boston Celtics team that can just flip the switch, but they're not there yet. And tried to do it late, didn't work. Tried to come back and take the lead. They did, but ended up giving it right back to the Wizards. Terrible defense in this game, and really, really just a horrible loss for the Pistons in this playoff race. Rich actually takes me to the question I had for you. With the Pistons heading into this game, a three-way tie with the Bucks, Pacers, and obviously Detroit for the 4th seed, them losing drops them out. Are you drinking the Kool-Aid that this is just a trap game for Detroit, or a sign that they're not as good as they think they are?
You know what? I'm going to give the Pistons some respect and say that this is a trap game. I think they have played well enough. I don't think their heads are in that space yet. I don't think they think that they've earned something that they haven't earned. So the Pistons team that I've seen this year is a hardworking team that, look, sometimes you get distracted, sometimes it happens. I don't expect this. I don't expect the Pistons to be like, oh, look at how good we are. I mean, you just have to take a look at the standings and understand, like, you haven't accomplished anything yet. You're having a great season. 37-30 is much better than I think a lot of people expected the Pistons to be this year. So no, this is not anything I think to be concerned about. So wait, am I drinking the Kool-Aid or not?
I would say you are. You're not actually. You're not drinking the Kool-Aid. No, you are drinking the Kool-Aid that this is a trap game. Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So
can I also mention that the Celtics, the area code in Boston is 617. So
do you guys have a 617 day?
Yeah, it's called when the Celtics win championships. The last 2 championships have been won on June 17th. So
are you serious?
Yeah.
That's actually crazy. What?
Yeah.
That's like a crazy date to be able to celebrate. What?
Yeah.
You guys are lucky as hell.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, that is crazy. All right. So, actually super dope. I'm going to tell my friends about that later. But all right, let's move on to Orlando versus the Pelicans. Orlando won this game 113-93. Before we get to the question, let's hear from our Locked On Magic host, Philip.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic, as the Orlando Magic defeat the New Orleans Pelicans by 20. A much-needed win, obviously a huge road win, but the Magic haven't had games like this very often lately. In fact, Orlando was up by 30 at the half, something this team just hasn't really done. And yes, New Orleans, not the best team in the world, very injured, now eliminated from the playoffs, but the Magic won this game the way that they have to win games. It started with Franz Wagner attacking the basket, continued with Paolo Banchero doing the same, getting his rhythm, the ball moving around, and the defense carrying the load and carrying this team forward. Paolo Banchero was incredible, as he has been since the All-Star break, scoring 34 points, including 24 at halftime. Franz Wagner had 27. He had 20 in the first half as well. The Magic did their work early and coasted to the finish line, maybe making it a little uneasier than it needed to be in that second half. But New Orleans never really threatened. They got it under 20. That's just about it. The Magic needed a confident win like this, where it was their defense leading the way, their defense driving everything, and their 2 stars taking over. You take them where you can get them and do it at this point in the season, and hopefully it's something that can carry forward as the Magic look to end this road trip.
All right, so the Magic obviously have not had the year that they hoped they would have. They've had a lot of injuries. The question, John, is, are you drinking the Kool-Aid that Orlando can figure this out before the playoffs and potentially steal a playoff series, or push a team to this game 7? Let's say push a team to game 7 by the playoffs.
I am, and this is difficult because. Okay, this is a case of, I thought Orlando was going to be better than this. They were better than this to start the season. They were right up there in the top. They might have gotten as high as the 2 seed for a little while, or the 3 seed for a little while. And so I was buying into Orlando then. Obviously, everybody strained an oblique in Orlando for some reason. And the injuries really, like, talk about derailing a team. But because my original thought still lingers and I want to be right so bad that I still think like, okay, this is the definition of drinking Kool-Aid. I am like, yes, I want to be right. I think Banchero is obviously a really good player. Wagner's a really good player. They have pieces like when they do what they're supposed to do, it looks good. Now, the problem is they are now very definitively in the play-in. They're not catching Detroit's. There's just are they going to be the 7th seed or the 8th seed if they, presumably win? That brings you up against either Cleveland or Boston. And Orlando has given Boston like some difficulty. They're big, tough, strong. And no team likes getting knocked around by a team like Orlando. Would they give Boston would it go to 7 against Boston? No. Would it go to 7 against Cleveland? No. So I don't think they can at this point win an opening round series, but it would be like a very tough 5 or 6 where the team that wins, the Celtics or the Cavs, would be like, wow, we had to earn every single one of those games. I think Orlando would acquit themselves nicely. And the talk at the end of the season would be like, man, if you just could have stayed healthy, you could have maybe matched up in the first round against the Knicks and taken advantage of their defense and maybe pulled a nice win there and sent the Knicks home early or something like that.
All right, we'll move on to the last one. This one's going to be super quick because I'm going to keep it a buck with you, John. I had the Bulls Nets. The Bulls won 116-110. I was struggling to find a question for this one. Both the questions I wanted to ask were tank related, but I decided to get like a positive one.
Okay.
Are you drinking the Kool-Aid that Chicago can win a play-in game?
No. No.
Do they even want to win the play-in game?
So why would you want to? Why bother? This Chicago is so freaking maddening, man. Like, you guys don't even know what you want to do. Like, we might want to play. Now we're not going to play hard. But then they will. Then they'll make the playoffs. Chicago is the exact type of stupid franchise that would get into a position like, okay, just lose one more game and you can go into the lottery and move forward with the rebuild. And then they would win 2 games and get swept by the by the Cavaliers and pick 15th or something. Like, it would be the exact stupid thing that happens to the Bulls all the time.
I think Bulls fans listening are hoping that no one's drinking the Kool-Aid, especially their whole franchise. So we'll see what happens. But that's all we've got here, man. Thank you guys for checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. I am your host of the Locked On Pistons podcast, Khahil. You can find me over there. You can also find John over at Locked On Celtics. Again, thank you guys for checking out Locked On NBA Game Night. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace out, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your days.